Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk. This is the big fight breakdown for the big fight happening at welterweight in Belfast on the 1st of March between Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan. Delighted as always to be joined by Greg and Elliot. Chaps, we're here. February kind of was a very busy month. March a bit quieter, but we're starting with what's a really good fight here and a really good fight for the people of Belfast as well. We'll jump right into it as always. It's undefeated versus undefeated, isn't it? Looking forward to getting some predictions as always. We don't know what each other are going to say on these calls. It's an interesting time domestically and in Ireland as well for the welterweight division. Obviously, as we've recorded this video a couple of days after Josh Taylor has confirmed he'll be making his welterweight debut in May against Echo Esserman. Conor Benn, although he's fighting at middleweight in a few weeks' time, we were kind of probably expecting him to be at welterweight for the next couple of years at least, and he'll be wanting big fights. So I want to know how do these guys compare? Obviously, we know what Josh Taylor's done in the past. Conor Benn is about to go into a massive fight against Chris Eubank Jr., albeit 2 weights above. But kind of how would these guys kind of beat Josh Taylor and Conor Benn? Would they both lose to them? Kind of, yeah. These fights are also potential for the winner of this fight as well. Elliot, how do you see kind of that current landscape?
It's a tough one, man. Tough on numerous counts. I think I think Josh Taylor's probably the easiest one to take. I mean, it's quite hard. I can't sit here and say that I think either of these guys have beat Josh Taylor, frankly. I mean, Josh Taylor, you look at the guys that Taylor's obviously been in with, have been like guys sort of, top of the division. Obviously, he's coming up as well now, but like guys that are elite level fighters. And so, well, not Jack Catterall, but you look at like Lopez, you look at obviously the run that he had. Yeah, right, it was a little while ago at super lightweight, but still, the guys that he's been in with have been significantly higher quality, to be perfectly honest with you, than sort of Crocker and Donovan. So I think, to be honest with you, I'd still back Josh Taylor to beat both of these guys if that fight happened. I mean, it might just be a case of sort of styles of Jack Catterall. It still surprises me, to be honest with you, that Jack Catterall's beaten him several times. But I think he'd win. I think Conor Benn for me is a difficult one because we don't really know, do we? Don't really know what's happening with Conor Benn. Like, you've got kind of these like different phases of Conor Benn's career that are kind of like, I suppose, how you want to put it, whatever euphemism you want to use, but pre and post eggs, I suppose, like the sort of levels of fighters that he's kind of fought. Yeah, all right, he was blasting guys out, but there's a big question mark over that now. I think, to be honest, we'll know a lot more about Conor Benn when we see the Chris Eubank fight. So I think we'll kind of know from there. With the inactivity he's had, is kind of quite hard. You could sit here and say Lewis Crocker gave him a competitive fight, possibly, when you look at like Conor Benn's CV kind of beforehand, before the kind of period in question. So yeah, I think that's the question mark for me. But I'd have Josh Taylor still beating both of these guys.
Yeah, Greg, how about you? If there was kind of like a round robin tournament with these guys, who do you think would come out on top? Obviously, we've not seen Josh Taylor at welterweight yet. We don't know what's left of his career as well. He's kind of been inactive quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 years. And Conor Benn, as Elliot said, there are question marks over how good he really is and what happens in a fight, what happens with him post the fight against Eubank Jr. How do you see things? What's your opinion?
The Josh Taylor part is the hardest bit for me, Elliot, because we don't know what Josh Taylor we're going to get up at 147. I think from what I've seen of him, it seems as though he's got that bit between his teeth. I think he knows that I feel terrible saying this because he doesn't deserve it, but it almost feels it's like his last chance. If you're not beating Echo Esserman, then where do you go? Conor Benn, I think he relatively, I wouldn't say easily, but I think he stops both Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker at this moment in time. Josh Taylor, it should be too good for the both of them, but if it's the Josh Taylor who fought Jack Catterall in the second fight, although you guys know I had it really tight and maybe thought Taylor edged it, I think it could be a close fight. It really all depends on what Josh Taylor does when he goes to 147, but I do think at this moment in time in their careers, I don't think either of them, that being Lewis Crocker or Paddy Donovan, have fought anyone on the level of Conor Benn.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, look, I think that the winner of this fight, it's the biggest fight for both their careers, and the winner, your stock's going to go up, and you're going to be in a position to possibly fight for a world title later this year as well, which we'll get onto in a little bit. Who do you guys have as the bigger puncher here, chaps? I know it's a tricky one. Percentage-wise, Paddy Donovan's, I suppose, has got the larger KO percentage. Whereas Lewis Crocker, there have been comparisons to Gennady Golovkin. His trainer Billy Nelson has a lot of things to say about his punching power as well. From what you've seen of them, look, punching power isn't everything, but it could be a factor in this fight. Greg, I'll go back to you. Who do you have as the bigger puncher here?
So Paddy Donovan is the more crisper puncher. He throws combinations that hurt you because he gets you in the right place at the right time. In terms of sheer brute strength, Lewis Crocker's the bigger puncher for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see. Look, I mean, yeah, we'll see if we get a stoppage on March the 1st in Belfast. Elliot, Paddy Donovan's his kind of last 5 fights. Obviously all been wins, all been by stoppage. However, yeah, Lewis Crocker, kind of the stoppages have come and go. 11 stoppages in 20 wins. Who do you have as the bigger puncher? And if this fight ends in a stoppage, who's more likely to win via stoppage in your opinion?
Yeah, I can't really add anything tactically more astute than what Greg said there. I think when it first came out, you're looking at it going, there's some good wins, there's good stoppage wins on Paddy Donovan's record, but I'm not giving my prediction away. But I think if there's a more likely to be a stoppage, I'd have Lewis Crocker probably stopping Donovan as being the more likely outcome. And I don't know whether I'm kind of swayed by you or Billy Nelson, kind of constantly talking about how powerful he is. But I think, I probably I can't add anything else other than what Greg said. I think, like you said, sheer power, Crocker, but crisper punching, Paddy Donovan.
Yeah, fantastic. Elliot, I'll go back to you. Jaron Ennis is fighting Emitis Stanionis on April the 12th. It's a few weeks after this fight. It's a unification fight with the IBF and WBA world titles on the line. This fight, we're being told, is a final eliminator. Boxing's full of politics and it's a tricky sport, but can you see if Jaron Ennis kind of is successful or unsuccessful? Do you see the winner of this fight fighting for the IBF title in their next fight? Obviously, there will be other opportunities, big names available. Kind of depends on maybe for Lewis Crocker. We don't know how long he's got at welterweight. We know he kind of struggles to make the weight now. But what do you see happening? Well, that's kind of a factor in this fight. What's being sold in is the winner of this fight goes on to fight for a world title. Do you think that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's a likely possibility. But to be honest with you, I can actually see, depending on what happens with Conor Benn, I could foresee it well where Conor Benn gets shoehorned into a title shot after if he beats Chris Eubank. To be perfectly honest with you, I can really see that happening. So for me, and to be honest with you, I can see Conor Benn beating Chris Eubank as well, and then I can see him getting a title shot. So I think this is almost like the safe option would be, Lewis Crocker maybe fighting for an IBF or Paddy Donovan fighting for an IBF. But let's be perfectly honest with you, if you've got the chance between marketing kind of Ennis, Ben, Conor Benn involved, it's going to be a lot more money. It's going to be a bigger event than someone like Paddy Donovan is, for example, isn't it? So almost like I think the sort of side piece that we're looking at promotionally will be possibly Conor Benn as that sort of glitzy alternative, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's a safe option that could well happen if that falls through. But I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen, to be honest with you, for either of these lads.
Yeah, and I think another factor is here. Jaron Ennis has got a tough task ahead of him on April the 12th, doesn't he? But he's himself has been talking about moving up in weight, but you just don't know. And I think one thing you fear is that the winner of this fight actually could have a long wait until they do actually fight for a world title, depending on what Ennis does. Greg, how do you see things developing in this welterweight landscape over the next few months?
You made a good point there, Elliot, and I'm just going to touch on it. So, can I see the fight happening? Yes, because Eddie Hearn promotes. He promotes. In fact, does he promote Crocker? I think he's got Donovan, but does he have Crocker? Is he under like a contract? Because he's got Jaron Ennis. So, if he says the winner is getting that fight, I truly believe that they will. It's not a fight I'd be taking. If I'm Eddie Hearn, I'm sending a letter to Mauricio Sullivan saying, listen, can this be some kind of eliminator to get into the WBC rankings? I think Barrios is a tough fight for anyone, but I think if you're fighting for your first world title at welterweight, that's the guy you want to jump in with. You don't want to go, here's your first world title shot, here's Boots Ennis. It's a bit daunting, isn't it? So I think it's a fight I can see because Eddie Hearn does have Ennis, but I think what both guys should be hoping for And this isn't a discrediting either of them. I'm just saying how good Jerron Ennis is. You need to hope that Jerron Ennis goes up to 154 and that title becomes vacant. Otherwise, I don't know. I would feel like I'm kind of getting fed to the line a little bit if that's the case.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, as always, I just don't want to see kind of periods of large in inactivity. Look, I think Ennis, there's a good chance if Ennis wins on April the 12th, he will say, look, I've unified the belts here. He's been talking about moving up for quite a long time now, so I think he might actually do that. And then possibly the winner of this fight could fight for a vacant title in late summer, but we shall see. Lots of ifs, buts, and maybes. All right, chaps. Before we do predictions, I just want to say the the bookies can't split the two of them. I've looked at odds. You've got 10 to 11 for either fighter to win. Draw is 14 to 1 if that appeals to anyone. But I think it's fairly rare we do one of these videos and the bookies can't split them. But we're going to try. Elliot Grigg, I'm going to ask you to go first. It's a tricky one, but we've had time to listen to each other's opinions and kind of digest what our prediction might be. As things stand, a couple of weeks away now, what's your prediction for Lewis Crocker versus Paddy Donovan?
My prediction is I'm not necessarily overly confident in this, but I'm going to go Crocker to win. And again, I don't know whether it's Paul Kelly kind of getting into me on the preview show about how he thinks Lewis Crocker is, whether it's Billy Nelson. I don't know if I've been influenced externally, but I actually think, like Greg touched on it when we were off camera talking about this kind of like a sort of, like an in-country kind of like grudge match, essentially. This is. I think it's going to be motivation, obviously, for both guys. I think it's going to be a stoppage here, and I think it's actually going to be Lewis Crocker that's going to stop Donovan. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. Equally, wouldn't be surprised if he pointed him, frankly, but I think I'm going to go Lewis Crocker victor, late stoppage for me.
Fantastic, Greg. 1-0 to Lewis Crocker. Give us your prediction.
Can I go on a little bit here? Because see, when you asked me about who was a crisper puncher and who was that, I kept it short because I wanted to have a bit of a talk at this bit, if that's all right with you guys. Right, where do I start? So I think that you guys look back through ESBR's videos over the years. I done a video a few years ago and it was about the top 3 prospects from Britain, Ireland. I put Paddy Donovan on that. I really rate him. I think he's very good. One of my favourite guys in boxing is Andy Lee. I think if he needs somebody in his corner for this kind of fight, it's Andy Lee. However, I can't unsee his knees shaking at that presser. I can't unsee it. Now, I talk to you guys about this probably every third video. Fear. It does 2 things for you. It either swallows you or it makes you be better. I think that there's going to be pride there. The fact that Crocker hasn't looked great in his last 1 or 2 fights, I don't think that... I'm not going to discredit Conor Walker here because Conor Walker, how can you discredit the guy? He was like 11 rounds down, 10 rounds down against Harry Scarf, and he just brought out this Rocky moment. And he's a British Commonwealth champion. That shows what hard work does, guys, if you keep at it. I just think I think Crocker is going to do the weight better this time. I can see both guys being able to hurt each other, but I just think when it comes down to it, I think that Crocker will just find that mental steelness that he needs to get through the fight. I think when you look at 2 guys from, although they're opposing countries, they're right next to each other, something comes over you in those type of fights and you're different. And I just see Lewis Crocker being different, and I think he'll win this fight. I think it could stop Donovan. And I was impressed with Donovan because I'm back this morning and watched him against Ritson. But I just think that he's probably he's too seasoned at this present moment in time for Paddy Donovan. Paddy Donovan's only fought really Lewis Ritson. If we're being polite, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but that's his one big test so far. So yeah, in a long-winded way, I'm going to go Crocker, Elliot.
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate the analysis as always, especially for a video like this when it's hard to make a prediction. I'm actually going for Paddy Donovan to win this fight. My reasons are, I thought that Lewis Crocker lost to Conor Walker last time out. I think he was very fortunate to win that fight. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not calling it a robbery. I just think I'm not quite sure how he kind of won that fight in the in the way that he did. His fight before that, I think he missed welterweight by 3 or 4 pounds. That fight was over a year ago now. So how easily is he making the weight? And we've not seen a good performance from him at welterweight for some time in my opinion. I agree with what Greg said. Paddy Donovan, look, he's just not done as much as Lewis Crocker. Doesn't have that experience as a pro. But I'm going for Paddy Donovan to edge this fight on points. But we shall see. It's a fantastic fight, isn't it? It's a really tough one. It's a big fight as well, isn't it, for the city of Belfast, a fighting city. So it's nice to see a big fight taking place there as well.
It's rare you get odds like that, and it's rare you see. Yeah. I mean, you guys are both bet a lot more than I do, but it's very rare that you get like odds split like that on a fight like this.
Yeah, and look,
I feel terrible, Elliot, because Elliot Greg is talking about odds, and my first thought process there is your DMs is going to have one name in it later, and it's going to say Billy Nelson.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think there's a chance Billy Nelson.
Billy could be offering his own market.
Yeah. But look, it's not, we talk about odds. It's not all about odds, but it is interesting that the bookies can't split them, and it's going to be fascinating to see how those odds develop. To see the weigh-in, how do these guys both make weight, and to get kind of opinions as well from everyone going into this fight on Fight Week as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's the weekend after the big fight card for February 22nd, so I'm sure we'll all be a bit exhausted, but the sport rolls on and we will see what happens. Elliot and Greg, we will leave things there. Lewis Crocker versus Paddy Donovan, March the 1st in Belfast. I will speak to both of you again very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, mate. And as always, thanks for watching.